And we are live. Today, my guest is Kat of Blades. Welcome, Kat. You would
Thank
like
you.
to discuss with us the history of street epistemology, I assume starting from the original book by Peter Boghossian. Is that correct?
Well, I haven't technically read it. Um,
Okay. Well,
I,
that's okay.
I'm
We're talking about the history of it, and you've observed that to a good degree. And actually, before I start with that, would you like to tell us about yourself and
yeah.
tell us where we might see you if we want to see you online?
So I go by Cat of Blades just about everywhere, and I identify as a gender fluid person, mostly female, so she/her pronouns just everywhere. Um, and yeah, transgender she/her pronouns. Stream on Twitch. I'm trying to do a playthrough of Minecraft 1.16 in hardcore. So it's not been going great, but I'm streaming Tuesdays and Fridays, I think it is, at four o'clock Eastern time,
Hmm.
2 hour streams, and yeah, just catch me at Cat of Blades on Twitch at 4 o'clock. Um,
Okay, 4 o'clock. What time zone
and I'm trying to like maybe stream a little bit more here and there, but
is that?
Eastern,
Eastern time zone. Okay.
uh, EST.
Okay. So 1 o'clock my time. Just like now. That's cool. Am I
Right.
am I displacing one of your streams today? Am I
No,
making you stream off schedule? No?
I don't think so. My Tuesdays and Fridays.
I
So
understand. Okay.
Thursdays I'm free.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Tell me about your opinion about the history of street epistemology, starting from when Peter Boghossian wrote his first book, A Manual for Creating Atheists.
So my first exposure to street epistemology was actually through Anthony Magnabosco. And
Hmm.
I learned that it had been inspired by this manual for creating atheists. And
Hmm.
I hear people talk about it a lot, like, and it seems like there's a idea of uh, we want to convert Christians to atheists, and that's
Hmm.
doesn't seem like what the goal of street epistemology is or should be. Um,
Hmm.
we kind of just want to understand why people believe what they believe and
Hmm.
help them understand as well. Because a
Hmm.
lot of people don't take the time in their lives to analyze their beliefs. It's a very like sometimes cathartic, sometimes just peaceful uh, to take the time and say, "Interesting. That's why I'm thinking that." And so it there's a like camp of atheists that only want to use this convert theists to atheists,
Hmm.
and I feel like they shouldn't be
Hmm.
like um it's great to want to talk to theists,
Hmm.
but if your goal is to convert somebody, you're just doing the same thing that Christians have done for years and years and years.
Hmm.
Um, but
Is that a bad thing to want to deconvert someone?
I I think that wanting to like let somebody find on their own why
Hmm.
their beliefs are hurtful is
Hmm.
better than trying to debate with them to try and force your opinion of their beliefs on them. Because a lot of
Okay.
times, if somebody's holding dogmatically a belief that is harming somebody, they're going to ignore, as they always have, the harm that they're doing. But if
Okay.
they can see how it's negatively impacting their life and other people's lives, they're more likely to change their mind.
I note that your video is frozen, so you may need to pop out and pop back in.
Okay.
Um, I very much agree that the current format. Oh yes, your video looks good. That the current format that I've been following says I should come into an SE with everything completely neutral, except I'm allowed to hold a bias toward critical thinking and maybe against
Right.
fallacies.
Right.
And this is
So
quite effective in relationship to people with faith. I'm
yes,
not trying to change their faith. I'm trying to get them to engage critical thinking. And if that interferes with their faith, well, so be it. Because in some cases, that's going to be the case where critical
but
thinking
I
really
think
steps all
that
over.
there are some people who exist who are believing in gods without using faith or using a
Uh-huh.
completely different definition of faith that we are. So
Okay. Evidentialist.
if you're talking about believing in something without evidence,
Mm-hmm.
yes, SE is good for like taking that apart and saying, look, this is not necessarily the greatest reason to believe in that.
Indeed.
But if somebody is saying, well, I've had personal experience, well, you can take apart that to some degree. Um, but if somebody's saying, like, uh, we have tested to see
Mm-hmm.
how this affects our lives, um,
Mm-hmm.
then they might have a point. And so we have to be ready to at least let them believe what is rational for them to believe, you know,
Yeah.
if not, even maybe change our minds if we're confronted with evidence that we find compelling. SE does not prevent you from changing your mind during the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, have you ever like experienced a point where you're talking with somebody and you've actually had your mind changed?
This morning,
Really?
I was on the chessboard Discord doing an event that was a public SE theory and practice demonstration, and somebody came with the claim about that dogs can express consent. Dogs
Interesting.
are capable of having consent and expressing it through their choices of whether they go to get the ball or not, things like that.
Yeah.
And this is under the assumption that they are not being punished if they fail to grab the ball, but that there's only a positive feedback thing. So we're not pushing
Yeah.
consent around in funny ways. And the dog choosing to do it or not is an expression of consent. And at the beginning, I was very 50-50 open. I went, and then I moved to a higher value. Also, there was another one. Actually, there's been two things where I raised my issue. The other one was too long a claim to try to describe right now.
Yeah. I don't
Yeah,
want to get off on too much of a tangent, but I want to
yeah.
say that one
Hmm.
of my friends has a cat that
Hmm.
will let you know if you are violating her consent. Like if you try to
Okay.
pet her when she doesn't want to be petted, she will bite you and like lash out back. But if you respect her personal space and let her come to you,
Hmm.
she'll love you like for the
Hmm.
rest of eternity. So
Yeah,
yeah,
the cat like that
I think
figure.
I agree with that.
Hmm. Yeah, I found that a compelling case. That's not a very profound case
Right.
of change. I have had more profound cases, but as a recent example, I think it does the job.
So I was recently watching a video by a YouTuber called Alec Alakai, uh,
Okay. Yeah, you
and
mentioned Alakai to me earlier in DMs.
her
Hmm.
video is called "Talking Allyship with Ocean and Cirrus." So this is Ocean
Okay.
Keltoy and Cirrus the Skeptic.
Yes.
Yes.
Familiar with
And
them both. I like them both.
in it they mentioned that SE was a tool that was being used to try to convert polytheists to
Hmm.
atheism, and
Okay.
that it was kind of offensive in a way
Hmm.
because they were trying to like use the same arguments, like the same kind of hypotheticals that they would against a Christian, and
Yes.
it just doesn't fit, as if they
Hmm.
didn't listen. And so we might be accidentally uh, like putting people off of SE by not listening to our interlocutors. I think
Hmm.
that we need to be more open to the conversation if we're going to be practicing it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely want to be as open as I can manage in this regard. Um, this discussion about category that we're in today is where I want to engage with critics of SE. Uh,
Yeah,
as long as they can be polite and articulate, I totally want to hear from the critics of SE and have them on as guests on the show, uh, even
yeah.
if they want to tell me that I'm
I
ugly and my breath smells.
I noticed that some of them are sort of popping in and out of the SE Discord, and I would love to hear more from the polytheists. Like,
Hmm.
invite them to have conversations with us and let us know, hey, this is where you can maybe improve in your method, like not being
Yeah,
such a
I
general
want to improve SE
polytheist.
by these means. If we engage with our critics, we have a really good chance of learning something important. There's a strong subgroup of, sorry, I'm being handed a question and I'm not sure how to address it. Oh, this is a question for Kat. Sorry. Is SE putting off people or angry atheists that are misusing it? Do you think?
I don't think it's the method itself. I think it's the misuse of the method. I think
Okay.
that the polytheists are seeing the misuse of the method and blaming us for it.
Yes,
Um,
and we should be blamed because if our method is open to easy manipulation or easy messing up, we need
yeah,
to put some kind of at least a teaching rule about what to not do, what to avoid.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so I wanted to say this affects me a little bit because I came to SE in
Hmm.
trying to sort out some of my previous beliefs.
Mm.
I feel like I still kind of hold to. There's something in my throat. Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine.
I hold to some spiritual beliefs that um, I don't know if I can justify. And
Mm.
what's that? Okay.
Yeah. Um, while Cat resets, I'm going to mention that we have a strong um, group within the SE that are vegans. There's a lot of vegan talk going on there, and it seems in some cases people want to use SE as a way to convert people to vegan.
Mm,
Uh, and my own practice says I shouldn't take a position on anything and try to convert somebody to a thing other than maybe embracing critical thinking.
right.
And so that might be a not SE thing to want to convert somebody. Although maybe it's okay. I don't know.
I feel like
I want to understand.
I feel like as a trans person, I have a radically different perspective on reality as a whole. Like I grew up in a
Hmm.
cult, I grew up transgender, and I have like strong anxiety and depression, possibly from PTSD.
Hmm.
So my outlook on life in general tends to be like based more in fiction and the meta aspects of reality than strong evidence. And so as I'm coming out, as
Mm.
I'm exploring more scientific stuff, changing my mind, I'm finding that a lot of the older stuff that I was holding on to, I don't hold on to as much. But that being
Mm.
said, there's still a lot of really weird stuff that I experienced in the past and still experience a little bit to this day that I think I hold maybe rational reasons for, but are
Hmm.
in the category of what we currently call supernatural. I think
Okay.
that maybe there's some things that science could change its mind on that would more accurately reflect what's going on in reality. And so I want to talk
Oh.
with people who are really into like figuring out what the truth is to see maybe I'm thinking about it wrong or maybe there's something here. And I think
Hmm.
that talking with people who are theist, who are practicing SE, might be a way of like exploring that thought space a little bit and seeing where we agree.
Mm. Okay, so you're looking for the advantage of people who are thinking outside of the scientific consensus to see if you can find some advantages in their thinking that we can embrace in science and expand scientific knowledge.
Right, because SE follows logic and rational thinking. So if there is anything that is rational to believe in, then maybe
Hmm.
we can like take on some of that. maybe there's like other ways of thinking.
Yes. Um,
I'll
yeah.
reset my video
Um,
again.
yeah. We'll see if we can make it. It's nice to look at your face. You look great, and when you're moving, it's even better.
I don't know. I've got full Wi-Fi signal here, so it shouldn't be, but I guess Discord has
Yeah.
always been buggy.
Yeah.
Am I
We
moving now?
tolerate it. Yeah. You're moving now. It's
Okay,
good. It looks good. I'll let you know if you get still.
thank you.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I think it's a really cool thing to engage with theists and people of an alternate mindset to see if we can improve our thinking and see if we can feed something back into science to see if science is missing something important. I'd love
Yeah,
to examine your claim in the supernatural regard when you have time.
okay.
Uh, and let's see. Regards the history of SE. I've noted that Anthony, especially in the past, in several years ago, had a real strong desire, personal desire. He was really turned on when he dealt with things like the F-bomb faith.
Yeah,
For in SE, the F-bomb isn't fuck, it's faith.
right.
So, um, and Anthony really is turned on by that. In some cases, I've even seen him almost steer a conversation toward God
Yeah.
because he's happy about that, and then call himself on it because he recognizes, oops, wow. So I've actually seen that happen.
I like
Um,
hearing the arguments against faith, like the hypotheticals he poses to
hmm
say, "Hey, maybe this isn't as like foundational as you believe it is. Like maybe
hmm
there's a better way to look at this." And I think that there might be some definitions of faith that are not wrong, but I think if you're using
hmm
a
I have
lack of
faith in you.
evidence, I
I
think
really
if
do.
you're using a lack of evidence to justify beliefs,
Oh yeah, working from what you don't know to come. Yeah, argument from ignorance. Oof. Yeah,
yeah.
we don't know about this, therefore something.
If your argument is you just have to have faith, I
And you've gone still. Yeah.
I
If your argument is you just have to have faith, why? The question, why should you just have to have faith? And if I look at someone else who at least claims to have zero faith and is still functional, what are they missing?
right. Or if you look at somebody else who has faith in a completely opposite belief or
hmm
contradictory in some way or other, then how do we choose between the two? Maybe there's some shared overlap between those who are using faith, and there's some core beliefs that could be held. But
hmm
I think if you're holding it based on faith and it can be contradictory, you probably should look more back at why you believe it and uh, come up with actual reasons rather than just it feels good to believe in this, or I'm just having faith because that's what somebody told me to do. Um,
hmm Yeah, is faith a habit,
right.
a habit of thinking as opposed to a conscious ongoing choice?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a thing. Um, I think oftentimes things that are taken on faith were learned with type one thinking, the fast. Yes, it's true. I took an authority and I'm done thinking about it. Don't think anymore about it. By the way, your video's frozen. Uh, and sometimes faith will shift when just exposed to the type two thinking, the slow, deliberate way of analysis that we do our taxes with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where does the definition of type 1 versus type 2 come from?
For me, Veritasium. Um,
Okay.
but he's quoting
Quoting some other author.
psychology things, and the actual type one, type
Right.
two is I think a human psychology distinction. hmm
Um, did you say something about my video again?
Yeah, the video's from
Yeah.
thinking fast and slow. Excellent. If somebody would put a a link up in there, that would be lovely for fast
I
and slow thinking. If somebody looks that up.
I like Veritasium. I also like I think it's the Vlogbrothers that does a series called
Hmm.
Crash Course, which deals a little bit with
Yep.
psychology and
Yeah.
philosophy.
I think I saw that one as well. The crash course on psychology. I love their crash courses. Those are great stuff. Ah, Daniel Kahneman. Thank you for that. Thank you, FK. Thinking fast and slow. It's a very important thing for me to remember and to pay attention to that. Your video's frozen. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you fine.
Okay, good.
My video back?
Um, yes, your video is moving.
Okay.
Okay. Um,
This is gonna get annoying. Just
it could,
resetting it.
and maybe just your still smiling face will be just fine. If
Maybe.
as long as you can continue to talk and we can hear you, that'll be just fine.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see. I'd like to open it up to the room. If anybody has any comments about the history of SE and the apparent shift, I think there's a shift away from a focus on faith toward a focus on anything and everything. I've gotten feedback recently from France where they prefer the term epistemological interview as opposed to street epistemology. For them, review epistemology something doesn't make much sense.
Yeah.
Uh, and they say that the French group, it reports to me that they spend almost no time on religion at all, and it's almost entirely about um, what am I saying? Crystals and homeopathy and conspiracy theories and that kind of thing. Which it's all the same in terms of SE. It's just what do you think, and is your confidence reasonable and compellable when you think about it slowly?
That's one of the things that I've basically discarded my belief on, but I still practice for some reason. I
Mm-hmm.
have crystals in my house,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I think that they, at the very least, make the room look pretty. So
Mm-hmm.
in that way, they raise the energy of the room. Um,
Okay.
so
So
I I
they're pretty and people like them. There's a I mean I dare say the word I probably shouldn't invoke that, but uh that yeah,
you said
just
dare
how
say
the
the
room
word what?
looks.
You cut out just a second.
Feng shui. Should I
Oh, okay.
dare say feng shui?
I still hold to uh, maybe belief in supernatural energy. I
Okay.
think that it might not be supernatural. It might just be that there are things in our environment that elicit emotions, and that they can be very subtle things that
Mm,
affect us in really big ways.
okay.
So there's some kind of psychic resonance, if I can even use that term,
Okay.
between people, and we might even be able to affect people across the world, um, especially with
Without without direct obvious communication. That
right. Well,
through means that we're not aware of.
especially with the communication of technology, we
Uh-huh.
might be able to indirectly influence others. Like if we're talking to a friend who has a friend, increasing that friend's mood by talking with them might affect that other friend. Um,
Sure, that would be direct.
but I want to take it
If
to a
you play
step
Minecraft with FK before the show, he'll be in a better mood.
right. But I want to take it
Yeah.
a step further and say that the friend of a friend could feel some feelings that we ourselves were feeling beforehand. Like we're subconsciously transferring like thoughts about the state of the world without directly saying what's going on in our lives.
Yes, no doubt.
Okay.
No doubt. If you knew me well at all, you could probably tell how my day is going before I say so, just by all of the nonverbal cues and other.
But can I then take that even one step further and say
Mhm.
that when we dream, there's kind of a shared reality of the emotions of the people that we're indirectly communicating with? Like, do we interact on like a psychic level uh, in our dream state?
How could we test that?
That's a good question. I don't know if we can in a like physical sense. I think
Okay.
that you would have to come up with a hypothesis about the information being shared. And
Okay. You'd have to come up with a method whereby you think it might happen and test whether or not that thing was happening.
right. So
Okay.
if you like, I would like to think you could put somebody in a MRI machine and look
Hmm.
at the state of their brain. Um, but if it's based on like subtle cues of day to day life, if you keep somebody from living in their day to day life, they're not going to pick up on it.
Okay. So the difficulty
So
becomes
it's like
teasing
an in
apart those
context
subtle
thing.
things that we accumulate together is about our information about other people and see if we can find something that is just actually outside of the blindedness that we could impose on
Yeah.
people's
I,
communication.
I
Okay.
feel like a lot of scientific testing is designed to remove things from the context that they're in. And there
Yes.
might be some importance in the context, like in vivo, I think it's called, like
Hmm.
in real life,
Yeah.
um, that is where these supernatural claims are coming
Okay. Well, these claims of non-obvious communication paths,
from. Right.
ignoring whether or not it's natural or super or other kinds of things, if we can establish that these communication paths exist and are functional, we could. I mean, really, the hypothesis it could be as simple as: are there communication paths outside those that we are aware of, and can we test for their existence without necessarily having a hypothesis as to exactly how that works?
You skipped for just a second
Yeah.
there.
This is open to the floor. This is not actually in a Olympus, although it's starting to sound like
I did want to say that when I was taught how to use my
one. Uh
crystals,
huh.
and it's just like right over there, um, I was shown by a Native
Uh huh.
American, like he handed me a small crystal and said, if you put it in the sunlight, it gets charged up, and
Okay.
if you put too much charge in it or you drain it too quickly, it can crack. And this is
Okay.
apparently something that he has experienced in his life regularly. Um,
Mm-hmm.
And so when I'm thinking about like the energy that I have in relation to the environment, I think there's a two-way street. Like I can
Mm-hmm.
put my energy out into the environment and affect like what the room looks like or feels like. Or maybe even I could put enough energy to create a small crack in a quartz crystal. Um,
Mm.
I haven't experienced that myself, but I don't necessarily pay that much attention to my crystals. I just kind of
Uh huh.
leave them sit over there to raise the energy of the room, but
Hmm.
it's
Gina,
interesting
or
I've got
to
some
or
hear.
that
background noise
he
coming from you.
expects, or sorry, is that for me?
No, it's from Gina. That's
Oh,
okay.
sorry.
She muted. It's good.
What was the
Go ahead,
question?
Fanny.
I was asking him if he hi, by the way,
Right.
cat. Uh, uh, if you actually considered that this guy with these rocks, with those crystals, that he kind of already knows how they behave, so it's easy to tell you this and has nothing to do with supernatural. It's like if
Uh,
Ah.
physically he already know these crystals. Like, yeah, these there are some black crystals that look like charcoal, and I see people talking about them like that. It's like, oh yeah, they're gonna crack because they're gonna absorb your energy, and then after you get too much stress into the crystal cracks. And it's like, yeah, or the crystal would crack anyways after time, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what they
maybe.
know, and they manipulate this knowledge to teach you some myth in between.
Ah.
So they use some
So
physical event,
yeah.
and that is your confirmation
It,
bias.
it is
So what I'm
possible.
hearing is the person who told you about it, who told her about it, could have uh, misunderstood the cause of things, know what the pattern
Right.
of crystals are, misattribute the cause for that, teach the cause, and teach the wrong cause, even if they believe it, even if they think that's a true thing.
Yeah. He did not seem to
Yeah,
like
not that he's
directly say
doing
this
like
is
it
supernatural.
lying to
Mhm.
you, you know.
He
Yeah.
didn't say that directly say that this was supernatural. He didn't seem to like
Well,
understand
no, I mean
science.
it's supernatural because I'm talking about like we don't in science and nature we've measured pretty much all the energies, you know. So
Mhm.
it is supernatural when he means like that this is gonna happen for other cause that is not physical cause.
Uh, I would think that in his mind this is a physical cause. Um,
Yeah.
that his understanding of what reality is slightly different than what ours is.
Yeah.
And so
He's making reference to something he thinks is in normal physics that physicists wouldn't recognize by those words.
something that he did show me that is, or tell me about, and I experimented with to myself, that we do know the physical cause for, is if you rub crystals together, like specifically quartz crystals, they will flash inside. They'll light up a little bit.
Yes.
He
Hmm.
said that was a way of telling like how much sunlight is in your crystals, which it's not. If you
Mm-hmm.
rub crystals together, they create an electric charge and
Yes.
they'll actually discharge between them, creating a small point of light. So as you rub them, they'll spark inside. Um, and so like they could crack, but I imagine that he's not doing that constantly. Now, are quartz crystals known for cracking when they're left in the sunlight? I don't know if enough scientists are leaving their quartz crystals in the sunlight to test. Like
Hmm.
maybe the temperature changes, but I've heard of people's quartz crystals like floating
Hmm.
from like having strong emotions in the area. So
Mm.
is there physical basis behind this?
I
Maybe.
can actually
We could
speak
test
on
that.
it for a second.
Yeah.
Yes,
Go ahead.
please. Go ahead.
Um,
And then I think Gina might also have something after you. Go ahead.
the thing about the crystals is, in electronics, when a certain size crystal will actually vibrate at a
Yeah.
certain frequency. So when they charge them with an electrical charge, they will actually vibrate. So that's sort of similar to what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah, your
It-
video's frozen.
In electronics, we do cut crystals specifically to make tuning forks.
Yes. Hmm.
And it's not just one pulse of energy and then it starts vibrating. It's you
Right.
put
So there's
a
feedback loop.
signal on it and it changes the frequency of the signal to the tune of the crystal.
Yeah, it's a resonant.
Because
It's a resonant feedback circuit.
for the same reason that when you rub the crystals together, they light up. They're piezoelectric. So when they're compressed, they emit electricity, and as they snap back, they emit electricity in the opposite direction. So
Mhm.
they'll either release electrons or absorb electrons.
Yep.
They'll create electric.
Yeah, Gina, go ahead. I'm sorry,
Okay,
Gigi.
thank you. I'm good. I'm all set. Thanks. I wanted for Cat of Blades, if she has the opportunity to read Dr. Boghossian's book or see some of his SE related videos, he does stress a lot of her concerns that she raised at the very beginning. He acknowledged that the title, A Manual for Creating Atheists, is a misnomer. It was supposed to
Okay.
be tongue-in-cheek and not literally intended to convert or deconvert people.
Mm.
Yeah. But didn't that kind of poison the well, maybe, just by choosing that title?
Maybe, but it was, I think the way he did it, I think he meant it to be funny and not.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
That was
fair.
an expensive sardony. That
I
was
should
a
probably
sarcasm
buy
that
the
hurt.
book and read it.
I agree with Kat on that.
I think that's
should
why the second book
probably
is
buy
not
the
titled
book and
that.
read it, but I don't have the money to buy it right now. If anybody wants to send me a copy, I would love to have one.
Maybe.
I would send you my copy.
Okay.
Do you have a public library that lends out ebooks?
I don't
Oh,
know if my
that is
library
right.
will lend out ebooks or not.
Can you put
Hit
the
me up.
Audible on your
I'll
phone?
take care of
Because if you download the Audible, you get at least 1 credit, and you can download 1 book for free. So
Hey, Kat.
yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. Kat, if you download the app Overdrive, it's available on iPhone. Pretty much every North American library works with them. And you can, so you have to have a library subscription. You link your Overdrive account to that library subscription or that library card, and then you can they'll lend you out audiobooks and ebooks.
Okay.
But
So-
unfortunately, they treat it like a real book, so you've got like an X amount of time to either
This-
listen to it or read it.
Is a Samsung Android phone. So
Yeah,
it's not iPhone, and it currently does not have enough memory to install new apps. So
Okay.
I'm kind of stuck right now until I can get better income and afford better
Yeah.
technology.
After the show, DM me. I'm gonna fix you up.
Okay.
I want to get
No.
you a copy of that book.
That was like Mr. Higgs quipping about the God particle, which he shouldn't have said.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Indeed.
shouldn't have been named the God particle because it has nothing to do with gods.
Well, that's the
Right.
saying, yeah. I thought about that when you're talking about the Street Epistemology. Boghossian, I guess his name is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Boghossian. Mm-hmm.
Boghossian.
Yeah. Yes. Peter Boghossian, spelled like this. The second
Okay.
book, I'm all in honor and favor of this particular version, the Orange Book, by Peter Boghossian and James Lindsay. I think that compared to the original book, it's thinner and better edited, and I think everything that's good in the first book is in here, plus about 20 or 30% more.
So is it
and-
the same book, just a different edition?
No, it's a complete rewrite from the top. And if anything, I note that James Lindsay must be a really good editor, if not a contributor to the thing. And I'm sure he was a contributor, but it's very much a redo. It's a full reboot. It's not like they don't show the same outline, but they
It'd
cover
be
the
much
same
nicer
topics.
if it was green, though.
Wouldn't even bother with the main.
Yeah, you would think so.
That book.
Yeah, I know, Boris. You like green. What can I say?
Yes.
So something I like to think about sometimes is like if crystal balls are supposed to tell the future,
Mm-hmm.
if they were made out of solid quartz crystal and
Yes.
you could somehow get an electric charge on them, they would shift.
Okay.
And if you had
Yes.
light passing through them, that would change the light passing through it as it shifts. Could
Yes,
you
on one axis.
right? Could
Mhm.
you gain information about the electricity passing through it by
Yes.
seeing the light?
Yes, absolutely. If you saw a lens shifting its focus, if you will, you would be able to watch it with a video camera. And they have these video cameras that are able to like sense your heartbeat from the little tiny stuff. So no doubt they would it would be capable.
So no doubt the people who are using like hollow glass spheres that have smoke inside and reading the smoke patterns probably aren't doing anything but
Yeah.
spreading woo. But if you have something that you have practiced observing
Hmm.
that you can tell relates to a specific event, you could tie those two together and use it as a like tool to learn about your environment. And so like that's one example that I can think of. Maybe there's some science behind this stuff that we aren't
Hmm.
looking into. We're just dismissing it out of hand.
Initially, I think you don't have enough bits of information, but I'm certainly
Can-
willing to talk about it. Fanny, did you
I
just
think
release
I-
a video just now?
I just did. That's why
did.
I was out.
Yeah,
I was like
that's fine.
typing and doing.
Yeah, Viva Fry. I
Viva
I
Fry,
follow him.
yes. Yes, he's amazing. He has 250,000 subs, and
Hmm.
he's a lawyer, and
Yeah.
I follow him since the Covenant MAGA hat boys with the
Yes,
old
since the
native guy.
Covington thing. Indeed.
That's a professional victim there. Not talk about that right now. Okay,
Right. We don't
change
want
subject.
to shift to
Uh,
that.
what I was about to talk about was the crystals, because
Hmm.
two things about the crystals. First, I think I like Cat the way that he's really seeking the truth,
By
She.
the
like
way,
it's
it's
so
she.
open. Sorry,
Cat is
sorry. Oh
cat is
my
she.
gosh. Okay, I keep committing this mistake. I'm so sorry. So I like the way that you keep seeking for truth, but considering like all very open mind in the way that's like maybe there is some science or there is some reality that we're missing in this
Hmm.
crystal, and you really into science to trying to understand as well, like physics and what is the other explanation for those uh, effects of rubbing the crystals, for example. So I
Hmm.
like that you are seeking for that, but I think it's like it's not a little bit that just like one time I heard I like that quote from Neil deGrasse Tyson. That's like
Hmm.
it's not that you want to explain or find supernatural things in the gap of science, and that this
Mm.
pocket gets smaller as we can explain things, and because it's to not understand or there is something we did not see yet should not be a strong argument to convince you of that thing is real.
Right.
It's like it's just a consideration. I understand, but like to really hold that as just to not understand, therefore supernatural. You know, because the
So
crystals,
Yeah.
the
science was
feeling.
the
Deciding
tool
Sorry, yeah.
that
whether
was
it's
invented
supernatural is
to
something we can address much
The
later once
the
we've
the camera
been
phone.
able to examine it. Yeah. Yeah.
science was a tool that was designed to help us explain the reality we see around us. Some
Hmm.
people, like polytheists, see a different reality. They see other things that we don't. And so to them, they might be using science to explain the things that they see. And when I talk to like people who spent years and years being like Hellenistic, or I don't know the names of all the gods, I'm sorry, but like being a Wiccan,
Hmm.
or believing
Hmm.
in supernatural things, they've spent years in study of ancient texts that gave them an understanding of what's going on around them. And sorry, and they might be using like they might be trusting an authority that wasn't
Hmm.
necessarily correct at the time, but there was something important in the text that they were reading that led them to some amount of truth because it helped them to read it, you
Hmm.
know?
I'm thinking
So,
it's very difficult to extract from ancient text any more wisdom than was held by the writers of that text.
right.
Yeah.
Um, which is why there's a lot of cross-referencing. There's a lot of like testing it, seeing if it works in real life. They're just
Hmm.
using things like candles and crystals and sigil arrays rather than
Yeah.
using like
But
soldering
it comes
irons and
again to the
components.
but it comes again to the explanation of we both observe the same effect or the same event, and we both explain into different methods. It doesn't make we both true.
Well, have you observed the
Hmm.
events that they're talking about, though? Like, have you seen
No,
spirits?
well, no, but what I'm saying is that science is something that is not just performed and then it is truth because it's science. There is a lot of pseudoscience,
Hmm.
and that's one of the things that Peter Boghossian talks about. Is
Yeah.
yeah, they made the grievance studies to expose that. That's not just because there is a science, you know, label. It
Oh
makes
yeah.
it truth.
Well,
So
that's
yeah,
another
this
thing that's
performing
interesting.
science that you like alchemists, they did not understand what they're really doing, even though they could perform something and preview something. Doesn't make them true or real in it, or like doesn't make them righter than the science that actually know the molecules and compositions and know why these things actually happen the
Right.
way they happen.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm not saying that everything we understand about science is wrong. No, generally, if you come up with a new theory about everything, it still has to conform to what we know about everything.
Yeah, it still has to at least make as good a prediction as the existing model, or else it's not going
To
to
the
displace the
reality.
model.
Yeah, it has to fit reality.
Yeah.
Now, the actual
Or the
observation
match.
of the thing you're talking about, as soon as we can recreate something, as soon as we can reliably produce an effect, totally observable by science.
And interesting to note that yes, there is I forget what the name of it is, but there's a organization that is offering, or at least was at one point in time offering, a cash reward to anybody who could
The James Randi Foundation.
James Randi Foundation.
Something that's interesting about the
It's
polytheists
amazing.
that I talk to is they aren't necessarily trying to convince anybody of what they believe in. So even if they could make money off of it, it's more personal to them.
Yeah, no, I
So
understand.
unlike
No, I
Christians who
understand
will
that
try
many
to, like,
religious people, not that they're just fooling other people, they are fooling themselves because they honestly believe in the things they are praising and spreading the message.
yeah.
So to continue along with the idea of the history of street epistemology, Fanny just brought up something that is really, really big in our history, that Peter Boghossian and James Lindsay, and one more name you're not seeing here, Helen Pluckrose.
Helen Pluckrose.
Yeah, did a really big world splashy kind of event of producing a lot of fake papers, fake scientific papers with faked data.
That
Which
is
of course,
awesome.
yeah,
I love that, man.
and got a bunch of them published in
That's amazing.
gender studies. Yeah, got a bunch of them published in peer-reviewed gender studies, with the express purpose of, from what I understand, they say is to show that the gender studies peer review system is broken. And this is a hugely controversial thing, and I've lost a friendship over it, actually.
Yeah.
An old friend of mine just can't have anything to do with me because I'm involved in street epistemology, which is associated with Peter Boghossian, and Peter Boghossian is associated with dissing gender studies, and therefore my professor friend won't have anything to do with me. It's that big, and I think this is an important
He
factor
has
in
received
the
a
history
lot of
thing.
hate because of that.
Yeah.
Peter
Yeah.
being called a grifter, and a lot of people dismissing his studies and previous works just because of they cannot understand the importance and the he's leading on that for sure. Again.
Yeah.
And I want to be real clear. I don't think that their work completely threw out everything gender studies is for. I think it just questions
there is more
the
coming.
basis, the underlying stuff, and saying, hey, some of what you're holding as truth is under-motivated, under-reasoned. So let's look at this and say, what is really true of what we're saying? Because there's a real poisoning of the well that can happen on the other side. If you debunk somebody in gender studies, does that mean that we throw out the idea that gender and sex are two different terms? No.
Actually, the
Well,
thing is to
so-
raise the attention that all the studies have to be reviewed and not to dismiss studies.
Yeah.
To point out that there is such what they call theory-based studies, that the ones that start from the conclusion and then they try to find arguments that back their claims. That is the idea. That's what they are trying to combat. And there is a book coming out here in August, the cynical studies, that is Helen Pluckrose and James Lindsay. I already pre-ordered mine, and I have a conversation with James Lindsay book after this book comes out. So
Fanny
it's going to be
has,
more
interviews with all of
over
these people.
the gender. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, indeed. Thank
In
you.
my understanding, there has been like a deep history of transgender people existing before gender studies, and that even before, like, before there was a concept of gender studies, there
Hmm.
was there were people working on like sexual reassignment surgery because there was a need in society. There were people begging for things like this to exist. And so gender studies is kind of a way to talk about and explain how people feel. And I think it's important to recognize that even if our concept of gender like is has shaky basis, it doesn't mean that trans people are going to stop saying what they believe and existing in reality. Like it's
For
not
sure.
going to.
No, I think it's important to say that the gender studies are important, and the most important thing to talk about how these disseminated inside the gender studies specifically, this type of theory-based studies,
Mhm.
culminated to make this such a big movement inside was because everybody was just accepting because of the shield of being LGBTQ, to be transgender, because we are afraid of say anything against it because it can sound transphobic, can sound homophobic. This shield, but a lot of people with agendas and propagandas and narratives
Mhm.
inside the studies, serious studies, and of course, this is negative for the entire field, and we need to be able to sort it out, and that's why they were bringing this conversation. No, it's not that we should dismiss gender studies. No, for sure not. We should talk about this because I would even say more than what you said. I think the gender studies started when we, as community, noticed that look, there are a lot of people having this type of problem that is being social and not being treated as medical or scientific. So
Can
let's
I
take this
interject?
field and study, you know. I don't think it has anything bad to do with it.
I wanted to point out you said that the LGBT community was like a shield. Uh, can you? Okay, I want to say if I'm understanding you correctly, you're saying that they're isolating themselves from ideas so that they can like internally believe in something that might be wrong and
No,
not.
I did not say that. I think you, when you heard shoot, you stopped listening to everything I said after. But it's okay. I
I was
will try
trying
to
to
repeat.
continue to listen, but I want you to elaborate on that a little
I
bit.
don't know
Like,
if I read it
Okay.
what do
properly.
you mean by the LGBT community is a shield?
I said that the shield was the people that had the narrative and the bad intentions infiltrate this field because he would use the subject as a shield, you know. So that is why we see more,
Ah,
and they found out. Uh, Actually, I don't know. It would be a better question for Helen Pluckrose.
mhm.
But I think she kind of explains a little bit of the movement with the interview we had together, the conversation, because I tried to bring back more into the studies in general, or not in the gender
I
studies specifically.
I
But
feel like
she's
I
very
do
into
see
the
people
LGBT
trying
community.
to get into the LGBT community and using like feminism as a way of shutting down opponents to the ideas. And so like
Mm.
in that way,
Hmm.
I think that might be what you're pointing at, but feminism has been a shield for LGBT people in that it has allowed us a forum to talk amongst ourselves and discover things about ourselves together without the dogma of the cisgender heterosexual community. If we had
Mm.
this space that was safe
I,
for us to talk about our issues, we could better come up with solutions for us.
I'm fine with that. I'm very libertarian. I probably will end up like telling you that I don't agree with this system the way that it is now because government is taking care too much of people's personal lives. I don't think government should tell. I don't even know if there is anything LGBTQ in my model of government would have to
Mhm.
appeal for the government, because government
Yeah,
would not even have to do with anything with
I mean,
marriage
ideally, we
or
shouldn't
social
have to
rules.
say that people of the same sex should be able to get married because the idea of marriage, unless you add religion to our government, says nothing about the gender of the people being married. As a construct, it originally was gender neutral. You could just be married to whomever you wanted. But we
Even the
wanted
number of
to
people.
make it same-sex marriage legal because there was pressure. What?
Even the number
Sorry,
of people.
Fanny.
I don't think the government should have nothing to do with marriage because should not be in between contract in between two people
Right.
or more people.
Now you're barking at my
If
door.
it's
I like
consensual.
that.
Right. So we should have marriage between people, right? If you can fill out a form saying who you're married to, there's shouldn't be limits on like who that is or how many there are.
But that is the point. I don't think it should be the government business because this should be
But
like a private
because there are
contract.
people with
So you
this
just need
dogmatic idea
a
of
lawyer
marriage.
to do that for you.
The only thing with
Yeah.
the government getting in with marriage is that there are benefits that you receive from the government for being legally married that you don't get
Yeah.
if you're just so. Since you're getting
Again,
the way
government
they're
needs
looking
to
at it,
shrink.
yeah, the
Yeah,
way
I
that
think
they're
the
looking at it is that they, it's kind of like a give and take. It's like we're giving you benefits, so we should have a little bit of say in the matter. It's like
yeah,
up here in
I think marriage benefits are a violation of the 14th Amendment.
Now, when it comes to like negotiating property, you do have to have a document stating like, yes, these people get my stuff when I pass away. Like these people are responsible
That's
for my
easy enough
death.
to do,
Like,
sure.
yeah.
Trust
Yeah,
is
that's
easy
to
to
be
set up.
do individually.
You could just do an individual contract. That should take care of
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that doesn't like here in Canada. Like I know you guys are U.S. centric because you're all
I'm
in
in Canada
U.S.
too.
But okay. So up here in Canada, if you're married, then it affects your taxes. You get tax breaks. It also like there's just a little bit like I was like I don't know how much they dip in, but they it's like they're slowly changing things, but the thing is the more power they get over the relationship, how much more are they going to ask in return. Like there's a pull for allowing couples to pool their income and have a single source of income for taxes. So
Yeah.
instead of so if you are someone who's making a little bit more than like with my setup, I'm making okay money, but I'm not making nearly as much as a 2-income house with my wife not working. But I'm being taxed the same amount so I'm getting taxed on the rate as someone with a 2-income house, but I'm not getting the benefits of a 2-income house. So they're looking to equalize that through taxes. But so I guess the answer would be okay, government butt out completely. Don't give anyone any benefits for taxes or anything like that, and kick them out of the arrangement, and everything else be covered by
Flat taxes.
Yeah. So, as is usual with these discussions, they
We
get
totally
really interesting at
rearranged from the
55
first
minutes.
conversation.
And I do want to cut off at an hour unless there's a real good reason to go longer. So I invite you to tune in again tomorrow, and we'll keep it interesting. I appreciate everybody's feedback. Does anybody have any last ideas? I don't want to. If somebody's got a round in the chamber, fire it off.
I wanted to say that it sounds like we covered some really interesting and good topics, and we did come to conclusions to, or at least an end of the conversation to a lot of them.
Yes, I really appreciate it. It was a good
There's
exchange of
probably
ideas.
more conversation to be had.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And on that note, anybody else? Going. Okay. These are 5 of my favorite YouTube channels that are centered on street epistemology. There are a few others on the channel that you're watching, promoted channels, and they're all really cool and great. If you are really interested in the method of street epistemology and want to learn more, there are excellent resources available on the site streetepistemology.com, brought to you by Street Epistemology International. Thank you, guests, everybody, for joining us. I really appreciated this. I couldn't do this without you. I wouldn't do this without you. And if you would like to be a guest on my show in the future, just get a hold of me. If it's as long as it's on the topic of street epistemology, even remotely, I have a way to fit you in my categories. I look forward to hearing from you.